This is Red Moon Role-Playing.
I look over the two books for a few seconds. This is interesting. I'm not entirely sure of the significance of the occult stuff. After all, sounds an awful lot like nonsense to me. But interesting that she's frequenting this particular bookshop. I wonder, is there something to these books? A code? Or maybe the bookshop itself is a safe house? Could be worth looking into. I'm going to help myself to these books. I'm sure the servants won't notice a single book or two missing, especially as the owner.
Right.
And I will mention to Benoit, interesting, she frequents this bookshop. Interesting subject matter.
I look at that. That is peculiar. That's true. Well, I didn't find anything quite as interesting. It certainly seems like the clothes that she would need for a trip like this are missing, but we already really knew that. Didn't find anything else really that stands out.
Well, we'll let Sister look over these, and maybe this bookshop could be worth a little look into, or not. You never know.
Well, asking around is not a bad idea.
They are books that stand out amongst her collection if she's trying to give a code or a message to someone who is looking for things like us. They stand out well. And if the bookshop is stamped in there, perhaps she is trying to leave us a clue.
Maybe, Genevieve, maybe.
You could probably leave the books. I feel like the books themselves are probably not important. That whole thing is nonsense anyway.
I look at the books. I frown. But maybe she makes a good point, and I'll say, well, maybe you make a good point. All right, then. I'm sure she wouldn't have minded me borrowing them. But I will put the books back.
All right. Now, you probably have time before nightfall to drive over to that bookshop if you want to do that. Or rather, by the time you finished it, it'll be dinner time and so on. You would... that's probably the last daytime thing you could do. Another option that presents itself is if you wanted to travel as soon as possible to the cottage. If you left now, you would likely arrive around nightfall. But then that's the issue of finding somewhere to stay. Oh, it's not that much of an issue, really. So that's really up to you. Or the other thing, of course, is you did mention you might want to try and work the crowd a bit, perhaps, at Benoit's restaurant, which, of course, the evening would be the time to do it. So, up to you. Or indeed, anything else that springs to mind.
Well, let's say I am certainly interested in this this cottage that they have. I mean, that's the last place that she spent any time in. Presumably, if something's happened, there might be some leads there. This bookshop is interesting, but, well, there's nothing... If we could do a quick stop by, then it might be worth doing that before heading off to the cottage. What do you think?
I agree. I think if we have time to go to the bookshop, see if it's open, we can probably, between the three of us, very quickly work out if this is a safe house or just a flight of fancy that she has. But if the last place we know that she was potentially the cottage, that is always the best place to start looking for somebody who's missing.
Yes, I certainly would also prefer if we would be able to get the information through the documents rather than having to, get it from my German customers. They are usually surprisingly nice people, but, there's always the threat of being killed.
I'm just going to reach over and put, my hand on, the top of your back and just, kind of, give you, a knowing half smile, half sadness. Just nod. Well, let us try not to be here this evening, then. Your restaurant will be fine without you.
I'm sure they will appreciate not having me around, bossing them around. I can be a bit of a micromanager, I've heard.
Do you know what? Yeah, I think it makes sense to do a stop off at the bookshop on the way out. So yeah, let's go with that. With you, the three of you arriving at the Rue de Charenton, near the Gare de Lyon, and which is a major railway station, and you see immediately as you pull up that of course you You get out to, you kind of peer in the windows, I assume, and things that people usually do. But the bookshop is boarded up and abandoned. Planks have been nailed over the door. Several window panes have been smashed. There is a damp, handwritten note that's nailed to the door that says, "Access forbidden." It's on German military-headed paper. And someone has painted anti-Semitic graffiti in French across the door. As you turn away from that, there's an elderly neighbour sort of comes out onto her front step. She says, "Looking for Madame Zalika, are you?" Don't approve of that stuff myself, but she didn't deserve to be taken away. It's last year, and there was a little girl she was looking after too, but I don't know what happened to her.
This Madame Zalika, she used to run this shop?
Yes, she's a gypsy medium or something, she would say. Don't know about that. I think she's just from Marseille, but selling all those books about witchcraft and sorcery and telling the future. No good will come of it. No good will come of any of that sort of thing, if you ask me. But still, she was kind enough.
I'm gonna pull up the photo of Agent Justine and show it to her. It's like, did you ever see this lady?
You know, she squints at it a bit, and she says she thinks she has. Like she recognises, maybe not exactly the face, but the level of glamour seems familiar to her. She says, she thinks so. She thinks so.
Was there anybody else who frequented this place? Maybe was travelling with this young lady?
Oh, I saw that lady a few times, but she was always by herself, I think. She had a chauffeur. He would wait in the car. A Daimler, I think. He waited for her, and she went in and came out with books. This was before the war.
Okay. Balls.
I'll look to Terrence as well to see if he has any questions he would like to ask.
I cross my arms. I think I don't. It seems to me that maybe there might have been something to what she was studying, but if the place is closed down... I look over the bookshop itself. Does it seem abandoned? Does it seem like it's been boarded up? Or does it still look quite respectable?
Oh no, it's sort of boarded up, and if you peer through the glass, it looks like the shelves have been pulled down and books scattered around the place.
Probably going to be difficult to find anything in there.
Now, I'd hate to say it, but maybe this was just an interest of hers, a hobby. Just a strange one.
Well then, I think on to the country cottage, which is of course a risky journey. So Benoit, I'm afraid you must roll that light d6 again.
That's a 5.
Incredible. So yes, you it's, and the good thing about the countryside is you can see a long distance away, apart from when the hedgerows get in the way. And so more than a few times you sort of make out something, some kind of military convoy or a place that, just something you want to avoid, and you turn off down yet another country lane, which adds some time to the journey, but you get there without any occupier entanglements. And you arrive, after some consultation of the map too, at first the town of Epinal, which is normally about 2 hours drive from Paris. It's closer to Chartres with its famous cathedral than to Paris. And then to Lac Lièvre, which is a picturesque little fishing lake. And the sun is winking orangely in the west as you pull up to there, casting long shadows from the two cottages there. A big one, the Lenoir's, that sits at the edge of the lake, and a smaller one further from the water's edge. And of course the trees around the lake, which also lance long dark shadows. There's a narrow path that winds along the water's edge from the big cottage to a sort of gazebo. It's a kind of pavilion, about 100 metres away next to a small wooden jetty. And you see outside the smaller cottage there's like what looks like a wagon to be pulled by a horse, which has various boxes and things, and it has the air of tools and equipment being left around. The larger cottage is all kind of closed up and you don't see any lights on or anything like that.
We were led to believe that there was staff still around here. Was that the case?
Well, you see there is an oil lamp sort of hanging up in one of the rooms downstairs in the smaller cottage, which indicates someone's in there. If you want to go and make yourself known.
His name was Guillaume, right?
Sorry, Guillaume Morel is the guy's name, yeah.
Shall we go and see if we can get him to open up so we can check the place out, or would you prefer to do this stealthily? I say, looking at the others, expecting them to be very professional spies.
I consider the area for a moment. I suppose my first instinct is we definitely are out here alone, yes? I don't see any signs of car lights in the distance or any indication that perhaps we were followed.
No, there's no one. You're pretty confident. In fact, you are confident that you were not followed.
Well, no need to be subtle when we can come up with an excuse for entering the building normally, no? I'm sure you could think of something, Benoit. Breaking in is, of course, fun, but risky.
Well, we also have the note, right? From Monsieur Lenoir.
We certainly do. Let's go make use of that then. We have a good reason for being here, and, well, she is missing after all, and presumably Guillaume here would be worried as well.
You knock on the door, and there's no answer for a long time, and then suddenly around the corner of the house, as if he's come from doing something, maybe out the back in a shed, who knows, a man appears. All of a sudden, he's tall, limping with his right leg. He's an unkempt fellow, stubble on his chin, a mop of curly greying hair, and he's wearing just a blue work shirt and denim trousers, smoking a cigarette as it happens, and carrying a hatchet, which you think is for chopping firewood. He just says, what do you want?
Ah, Monsieur Morel. I'll immediately show the letter. We're here on behalf of Monsieur Lenoir.
He sticks the cigarette in his mouth while he reads the letter, and fairly quickly scans it, raises an eyebrow at you lot, and folds it up and hands it back. He sort of steps closer, so he's now within the lamplight coming from his own house. And Terence, you get the impression from his appearance and general demeanour that Morel is a habitual heavy drinker and may indeed be struggling with a hangover right now. What do you need me to do? And I just open the big house?
I believe that's all we need. No need to trouble you any longer.
Yes.
Sure you'd like a coffee at this time of night?
What's that supposed to mean?
I always find coffees at night refreshing, don't you, sir? A smile.
And I'll try to jump in here to save the situation. Yes, and if there would be anything you might be able to tell us about, when last Chantal was here. You see, we're all very worried about her. She's been missing for some time,
Chantal, well, Madame Lenoir, she was here a few weeks ago. Back any day, probably, but been here all by myself for like a month. Been getting to me, to be honest.
Do you know what date it was that she left last?
Would be the maybe 2 weeks back, 12th of May. What date is it now? It's about 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen her since then. I thought she'd gone back to Paris. Why? Something happened?
Well, she didn't go back to Monsieur Lenoir, and there was a telegram sent saying that, that she was leaving, and that didn't seem like her. So, we're concerned that something might have happened. So if you were to have any kind of insight into any people who were coming and going here, perhaps, while she was staying here, that might be very helpful.
Oh, I don't know about that. It's just been, most of the time it's just, me and the wife until, But, and then with Madame Lenoir, Monsieur Lenoir is supposed to come pretty soon, but I suppose he's not doing that now. Oh, and there was that, I forget his name.
Very handsome.
Lavenier, sort of good-looking
slippery, you might say.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he was here. Just one time, though. It's like, maybe 2 months ago, actually. Ages ago. Yeah. Yeah, he just doesn't... That's about the only person apart from... he was very over-familiar, I felt. Anyway, but yeah, it's the only person, because they're very private, the Noirs. Got a lot of money, you see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll open this up, let you in. Just sort of don't mess anything up. Yeah. Right.
Oh, of course. We shan't trouble you.
I'll be in the little house if you need me. And he sort of stomps off and leaves you to it.
Well, that was smooth.
It's ironic, really. The coffee really would help with the hangover I'm sure he has.
So, what's your approach to this holiday cottage? Which, just to describe it a bit more, it's nice. It's a big stone cottage with a wide veranda that stretches out to the edge of the water of the lake. But it's also it's clearly like deliberately rural, sort of a Petty-Trianon kind of situation almost. Like there's no phone. There is an electric light in in the main room that runs off a generator, so it's not on at the moment. But mostly it's set up to be like something from the turn of the century. It's sort of a rural retreat kind of thing, you know.
Well, I'm going to once again start with a perimeter search. I'm curious to see if there's anything... I don't think she's just going to have something lying around, even in her supposed private home here in the countryside. It's still... You never know who could come. So I'm imagining what sort of woman I think she was. There must be somewhere where she's hidden something. A compartment, a floorboard, maybe in the basement.
Perhaps if she has a generator running, there may be other cables that we can trace that isn't just to the main light in the main room. If she has a place underground, she might need electric lights down there, or if there's a radio down there, because she is an operative, she may need to communicate with people. So perhaps we can chase the wires from the generator.
An excellent idea. I'll see to that then.
All right, let's get investigation rolls from, well, all of you, I suppose, and see how they pan out.
And I rolled a 6.
I actually also got a 6.
6 all round.
I'll be honest with you, the timing could not be better, because a 6 is the same as rolling a 5, but you also gain an insight that reaches beyond human knowledge, which is usually terrifying and induces a ruin roll. So, well, let's first talk about what you find. So, you look through the living room. It's long, cheerfully decorated with rustic furniture, neat and tidy. Doesn't look like it was left at short notice. Guest bedrooms, 2 of them, nothing of note. The master bedroom is of more interest. Genevieve, you rule out there being any underground, any basement or anything like that. The master bedroom has a large double bed, a wardrobe, a wooden dresser, and the dresser, the usual toiletries and cosmetics. One side of the room is dominated by a large wardrobe full of women's clothes, with a shoe drawer at the bottom containing 7 pairs of very, very new-looking shoes. The kitchen is well appointed, as they say, a large cooking range with heavy wrought iron doors on it, a stone basin, shelves full of colourful glasses and dishes, everything in neat order. Nothing's left on the draining board, there are no empty glasses lying around, nothing to attract ants and flies. So everything carefully put away. But you feel something as you reconvene on the veranda. There is, somehow, there is something hidden. And you're drawn towards that small wooden jetty that juts out into the lake. When you look down into the water, having made your way to the end of it, you see a submerged wooden rowing boat. It's overgrown with algae, wedged somehow between a couple of rocks. And you see something waver out from the darkness below the boat and then back out of sight in the last gleam of the sunlight. The white shape of a human arm. There's a body down there. And now if everybody would roll 1d6, and if it's higher than your current ruin, increase your ruin by 1.
So I rolled a 2, and my ruin is 2.
So you stay at the same place. That's okay.
I roll a 6 on my ruin 1, so mine will go up to 2.
I rolled a 4, my ruin is 2, so I'll go up 1 as well.
Perhaps, for me, seeing a dead body is not initially the most terrifying thing. I've unfortunately seen quite a few, and in war, they've often been in quite horrific states.
Yeah, maybe not so much for Genevieve. I think she's just gonna turn around and close her eyes, just trying to get that image out of her mind.
Benoit, on the other hand, has not seen dead bodies before, so he begins rushing off the jetty towards some bushes close by to hurl his guts out.
I just nod. I'm not going to judge anyone on their constitutions. We all have our moments, but seeing as I'm the only one keeping it together for the moment, I think I'm going to start the process of, well, we need to find out who this is.
Yeah. How do you want to get that body up to the surface?
Yes, I do. I think I'll try and find a spot on the pier or the jetty I can keep, I don't want to fall in the water, and see if I can just fish this body out. If it's floating, it shouldn't be too difficult. Might be a bit of weight to it, but then again, I am quite a stocky individual.
No. It's, you can sort of find a boat hook somewhere, and that's the thing. It's not that it's weighted. You can't really sort of fish the body out, but what you can do is just kind of prod at the boat to move it, and indeed it's been in the water so long that you feel the wood is soft when you strike at it, it breaks apart, and then you can, with a sort of dark, sudden bubble that comes up as you roll over the air pocket that was under there, the corpse is freed and it rises slowly to the surface, rolling lazily in the water as it comes. It's the body of a woman dressed in a black skirt, practical shoes, and the remains of a red woolen shawl. And a wave of dark hair spreads in the water and then tangles again. And then the body rolls face up, and the face is a swollen, pulpy mass of grey without features. Prolonged immersion in the lake has robbed this woman of her eyes and mouth. Pinning the shawl at the front, you see a brooch with a green semi-precious stone on it. That catches your eye. In fact, in future years, if you survive this, that's the detail you'll keep remembering.
I'm going to try and assess what's happened here. I'm a doctor, after all.
Yeah, you can bring the body to shore fairly easily. That could be
Then I'll do that, and part of me would love to identify this woman, but as you said, the face is going to make that very difficult. Maybe the clothing or the age. I mean, I'm hoping it's not our agent.
She had the necklace, right?
Yes, look at this. This seems quite unique.
And I will have come back now as well to look at this. I'm quite pale.
Understandably. All right, let's get an investigation roll from Terence, I think.
I got a 6.
Well, first of all, your medical training tells you that the body has been in the water for more than 3 weeks, and you are sort of at a bit of a loss because she's been immersed for so long. Finding the exact cause of death is impossible, like on the shore. If you did a full medical examination, you could probably, examine the lungs, all that kind of thing. But you can't really know, did she drown or was she sort of hit on the head and then thrown in, for example? There's no way to tell that, just here on the lakeside. However, you do find a distinguishing mark, which is interesting, which is a tattoo on the left hip. It is a black triangle within a circle. And Terence, you've seen that before. You remember this from university days. It's the symbol to you. It makes you think of the compound, circle, triangle, and square that represents alchemy.
Fascinating. Strange thing to find. Again, alchemy itself was not always nonsense. It's what you could argue eventually led to chemistry, but, well, some alchemists from the ancient days had slightly different ideas back then, some that were a little fanciful. But again, I've studied medicine, I suppose, yes. How strange. Alchemy. But who on... And I think at this point I will just say, who on earth is this woman?
As Terence is sort of contemplating this, Genevieve and Benoit, you see Guillaume Morel headed towards you along the shoreline, silhouetted in the twilight, against the twilight sky. He doesn't move that fast because of his limp, but he is coming determinedly, and he starts to shout at you. What are you lot doing over there? What?
I'm gonna get up and rush over to him so he doesn't immediately see a corpse and freak out.
Okay. Well, he kind of tries to... He'll push past you.
You might want to take a moment. We were looking around and we found a body of a young lady in a lake. It's in a very bad state, so if you are...
No. What? Who is it? Who is it?
We don't know. Does a green brooch and a red shawl mean anything to you?
Oh my god, it's Edith. It's my Edith. Let me see her. And he does push past you.
Yeah, hands up, I let him go. Like, this is his lady.
And he falls to his knees next to this body, and he looks at you, Terence, and he says, What happened? What happened? Did she drown? What happened?
I'm not sure yet, monsieur. I'm sorry. She's been down... I'm sorry, who is this? Edith, I heard you say.
It's his wife.
My wife.
Your wife. When did you last see your wife, monsieur? I feel she may have been down there for at least 2 or 3 weeks at this point.
Oh, she left me a month ago. I mean, I can't talk about that now.
No, of course, no.
What am I going to do?
Don't worry. For the moment, we need to try and find out what's happened to your poor wife. There might be some clues that we can discuss. With your permission, I'd like to maybe take her... We could always take her back to your home.
He nods, like, kind of dazed, and yeah, like, over the next sort of however long it takes, you sort of are able to maybe sort of wrap and lift her and bring her into the Morel's cottage, and sort of try and figure out what to do next. And he's, oh well, I've got to go and tell the gendarme. I've got to report this.
I look to the others. It pains me that this could be an issue. After all, he's completely right. Of course he has to call the gendarme. But at the same time... Well, how much can we trust this individual? I'll say, politely, of course, but let's not do anything too hasty. We will help you call the gendarme, but it might be best if we... Well... look into the case first ourselves, just for a moment, just to make sure we haven't missed anything.
But I don't understand it. If she's been in the lake this whole time, then who wrote? And he can't find the words. He reaches into his wallet and shows you this note that he's kept. It's all folded up and scrunched up. But it's a handwritten note, a piece of, from a lined notebook. Someone's torn it out and then written this note in pencil. And it says, in French, it says, "I'm sorry, Guillaume, but I would rather die than live with you any longer. Edith." And he looks at you and says, "Could she have done it herself?
When did you receive this note?"
He goes kind of quiet and doesn't really want to talk about it, but then...
I'm going to sit him down, and if there's any booze here at all, which in a high-class place like this definitely has, I'm definitely going to pour him a solid drink. And also one for everyone else, because this is a bad time.
I'm so ashamed. Madame Lenoir, I was out burning some weeds that morning, and from the garden. And she came out on the veranda in her pyjamas and she said, "Hey, such a beautiful day. Don't work so hard. Come in and have a drink." And then, one drink followed another. One thing followed another. And when I got home, Edith knew exactly what I'd been doing. And I couldn't stay in the house, so I just went over. I went over the far side of the lake. My friend Pierre, his farm's over that side. I just stayed with him overnight. When I got back, it was about dawn, and Edith was gone, and there was just this note. And Madame Lenoir was gone from the big cottage too. I thought,
was that the last time that you saw either of them?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
4 weeks now. 3-4 weeks. It's hard to keep track out here, with the blackouts and stuff.
Of course.
We've got to tell someone about this. We can't. You don't want to have too many questions about you, right? I'll go tell Gendarme Canet over in Epanon. I'll ask him to wait a while before he comes. If that's what you want.
The thing is, before I continue, can I get a read on whether I think I could trust him at this point?
Yeah, go on.
4.
There's more stuff he knows. But again, it's the thing, he's kind of muddled now. He tells you that he thinks maybe she just jumped in the lake with rocks in her pockets.
Genevieve says, "You're right in that we don't want a lot of questions about ourselves. If you knew Madame Lenoir well, you know that there were secrets that she had. There are secrets that we have too. We would like a little bit of time to figure out what is going on here. There are things that we have seen," and she'll look over at Terence and look at kind of the left hip where the tattoo was. "There are some symbols that are curious to us that may have something to do with Madame Lenoir as well."
With Madame Lenoir?
Oui.
Yes. Your wife had a tattoo. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, it's on her hip. Something from when she used to work in Paris. She said it was some kind of group she was in before the war, back in the 30s. I didn't really understand it.
After your wife went missing, did you see Madame Lenoir after that?
No, by the time I got home, they were both gone.
Both gone.
I know it seems weird that I didn't go anywhere, but it wasn't the first time Edith had, left me and then come back. One time it was like last November, she just went away for a week. She stayed with some girl she used to work with in Paris, and then she came back. I thought that would happen again.
I understand, monsieur, I understand. Sorry, we just have to ask these questions. You, for what or worse, hurt your wife. We could all agree on that. Maybe unintentionally, but... Your wife, was she the sort of woman, when she was wronged, would she accept it? Or would she, take matters into her own hands? If someone was trying to intimidate her or wrong her, would she put up with it, or... How was her relationship with Miss Lenoir?
She certainly didn't take any nonsense. But, when you're working for people like that, you gotta know your place, haven't you? I did hear them arguing once or twice. But Madame Lenoir, she never sort of made a big deal about it, so I don't know what to think about that. Didn't think anything much of it at the time. Well, I was worried we were both going to get fired and I'd lose this cottage here, but it seemed like it all blew over. Wasn't a problem.
They weren't particularly close friends outside of the working relationship.
No, not really. Well, like I say, you can't be friends with people like that, can you?
At that point, I'll make a stand and say, as my associate said, we'd love for you just to give us a little time. With your permission, I'd like to just take a closer look at your poor wife. I just would like to be able to, maybe you can tell the police yourself, find out what exactly happened. I think I can do that, but I just need at least 20, 30 minutes, maybe, in a proper lit room.
And, may I also just ask one question? You mentioned your wife, that she had gone to Paris to stay with some old friends. Do you, happen to know their names, or where we might be able to find them?
There's someone important. There was like that she called the doctor. Like this, he was like some celebrity doctor or something. Dr. Allard, yeah.
This Dr. Allard, is that a name that I have come across anywhere or heard of? Is it a celebrity?
It rings a bell. It's sort of one of those, doctors to the great and good kind of names that floats around. But he never came into your restaurant as far as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Genevieve, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of distant uncle or something.
Interesting. Well, perhaps we should let our doctor do the work then, and again, our condolences on your loss, of course.
I regret to tell you, Terence, even with a good bit of lighting and a large dining table, you're probably not going to be able to do an actual examination here. Really, you'd have to kind of... No. I mean, how proper are you talking about?
As we are, as you said, lacking time and resources, all I'm trying is there any evidence of any wounds? I can tell she's drowned, and obviously the flesh has acted like it would be drowning, and there might be some small scratches, but is there anything else? Anything like bruising or, a gaping wound?
You feel like you can rule out the rocks in pockets theory straight away, because she's not wearing anything with pockets in it, right? How would she have weighed herself down? You can also rule out any kind of stabbings, shootings and things like that, because there are no wounds of that kind. But what you can't rule out is a blow to the back of the head, close to the top of the neck. There's something there. It looks like a bludgeoning wound, a blunt impact. But, of course, that's not conclusive either, because, after so long in the water, that's hard to tell. And she could well have hit something on the way down that might cause that as well. But it's certainly your gut instinct is that this woman was smacked on the back of the head, either right next to the water or somewhere else, and then put into it. And after all, how did that boat get on top of her? Could that be an accident? Hardly.
No. Hiding the evidence. I suppose the only thing I'm really unsure of at this point is, was this some unknown assailant? Or was it the agent herself? Did this woman in her rage confront her over the affair? And did the agent take matters into her own hands? I can't say I would blame her, knowing what she was doing. You can't really afford to lose a war over one person murdering you over an accidental affair. But it's still quite grim. And then, of course, there's this association they had. Oh, this is quite infuriating. For now, though, I will simply take away the necklace, and I will present it to the man and say, "This was your wife's, yes?"
Yeah, thanks. Do I need to keep it for evidence, I suppose? Well, I'll keep it anyway.
I can't say she'd want you to have it, but, well, you are the next of kin.
So I think we can, whether you travel back in the night or the daytime is up to you, but Benoit's got to do his driving shtick again, I'm afraid. Those Nazi patrols are everywhere.
I roll a 6.
Your character succeeds. Describe how.
I think there was something about seeing that dead body and realizing just how serious all this is. It sharpened my senses, made me realize that I truly am working here with my life in my own hands. So I'm operating at, optimal capacity, really, and I'm doing the best driving I've ever done as a result of that. I don't think I could keep this up forever, though, but for right now, I'm very much in the zone.
So I think you need to split up when you return to Paris. Benoit back to your home, and the other two to the safe house with Agent Denise, who, doesn't really say anything, welcomes you, but doesn't ask you any questions.
And I will have, on that drive, shared my theories that either this was, some terrible domestic spat, or maybe when the poor Edith went to confront our agent, maybe someone else was already there, and maybe she was silenced as a witness, and at the same time, maybe that's when our agent vanished. Maybe.
Compelling theories.
I think it is probably more than just an affair gone wrong.
I would agree. I just wish we had more evidence on the latter.
Well, on that drive, you can also decide on a place to, meet up if you want to meet, or places to go the next morning. You've got a few names that you can investigate, and any of those names it's not like a huge obstacle to go and find them. Like, maybe you'll have to sort of track someone down by trying them at a couple of different places, this being the pre-mobile phone era, but basically it's there's not too much difficulty in finding them if you want to, but the question is who or what do you want to look into. And you can make that quite abstract as well, by the way. As the investigating role can be very sort of specific, like the medical examination thing, or it can be a quite broad. I canvass people in the area to see if they've seen anything, that kind of stuff. So it's up to you what sort of approach you want to take to that. And Benoit, what's your go-to response to, like, if you in your normal day-to-day life needed to find out something that was a secret, probably, how would you start?
Much of what I do in my work is, of course, talking to people, and there's a lot of people who like to gossip quite a lot, who have their finger on the pulse of everything that's happening in Paris, and who would know things, who might have heard rumors. So I think there's one of my regulars, a Jean-Luc, who I like to have a coffee once in a while, talk, sometimes more than that, and he tends to have a lot of good information. So I think perhaps I'll invite him over to the brasserie this morning for some good coffee, not the fake stuff that everyone else has to drink. I've been able to score a bag of real beans.
Ah, nice. Well, good. So yeah, we'll represent that with an investigate role, I think. How much, how charming you are, or not. And
there's something wrong with this dice. There's another 6.
So Jean-Luc comes around. He is, he looks a little more ragged around the edges nowadays than he did back in, let's say 1938. But he's still, dresses nicely. Light grey suit. A light summer hat, although like everyone else, he's sweating, mopping his face with a handkerchief when he comes in. And he sits down, tries to relax. It's difficult nowadays. Whenever you call me, want to talk this early. Something you want to know, Benoit. What are you into this time, old man?
Well, I'm trying to find out what's happened to a certain very wealthy lady, a Chantal Lenoir. She's missing, you see, and, well, I think something might have happened to her. Have you heard anything? Anything about her? Anything about her being seen somewhere, or anything of that kind?
Chantal Lenoir. Well, the last I heard, she was knocking around with Christophe Laveau, dishy fellow. Have you spoken to him yet? Probably should. As although, I say that, I was talking to a charming bellboy from the Ritz Hotel just the other day, and he said he had seen her at the hotel. Sometime a few days back. Terrible dates.
Days?
Yeah, June, certainly within June.
Huh. Yeah, see, she's been missing for quite a lot longer than that, so if she's been seen days ago at the Ritz, that could be a real lead. Jean-Luc, you, you remain an amazing source of information. And much more. Of course. I hope the coffee tastes good.
It tastes good, Benoit, but to be honest, I certainly don't need coffee to keep myself awake. I've been having these terrible dreams, you see.
Oh?
I can't really understand it. I sort of... dreams where I'm flying over the city, and there's a terrible coldness sets into my limbs. My arms and legs, they're frozen, and I see people flying alongside me, some that I know, some that I don't. And it just fills me with this terrible fear. It sounds ridiculous, old man, but there have been nights when I've been afraid to go to sleep. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. I have this recurring vision of... Do you remember when they were... Was it when they were expanding the metro and they built those stations and they never used them? Do you remember that whole thing with the Haxo and the others? I keep having this idea that that's it. I'm flying, but I know that my body is underground. It's sort of in the metro somewhere. Isn't that the most perfectly absurd thing you've ever heard, old man? But I tell you, I can't shake it. I can't shake it at all. And he looks into your eyes and I look at him with empathy and I take it very seriously what he's saying. Obviously, that sounds dreadful. Not being able to sleep. I mean, that's torture right there. I hope you will be able to have calmer nights soon. Things are going to get better. They're not always going to be like this, Right. It'll be over by Christmas.
Yes.
See you around. See you around, Benoit. And he pushes his way out and pops his hat on and saunters away down the street. And your ruin increases by 1. Now, Genevieve and Terence, do you have anything you want to do before you meet up with Benoit in the morning?
On the drive back and picking up random pieces of a conversation from the recently widowed, he'd mentioned a Dr. Allard. Now, although Genevieve doesn't have her little book with her, with all her addresses and stuff, she's a teacher, so she'd be really good at teaching kids how to memorize things. So she's going to try and do like a little memory exercise to see if she can remember where this guy may have been located and what kind of family member he may be. So like she'll pretty much like the end of the bed, just sit down, just stare at a point and focus and see if like she can recall any information about this guy whatsoever.
That's fine. I won't be sort of demanding an investigation roll for that. I think that's pretty valid. If you just sit and concentrate, I don't think you're going to remember, his house number and street address.
Mm-hmm.
But what you might do is, I'm pretty sure I've had this experience in real life, is you suddenly will remember like a landmark from maybe when you were much younger.
Yeah. And
you sort of realise, and you can realise now that you're older, where that landmark actually is. And from there you could figure it out. So if you can get yourself to, let's say, a noticeable post box on the corner of a street on the right bank,
yeah,
then you'll be able to, you could walk it from there because you know your way to this guy's house from there. I think that's the kind of thing you can do. But of course, Terence, you just see Genevieve sitting at the end of the bed for what feels like forever, not talking, kind of, I guess, just looking at her hands. Maybe, I don't know.
Like any time you go to make a noise, like there's a finger. Ah!
I mean, I think I'm quite happy to leave you to it then. I don't want to disturb your thoughts. I'm trying to myself come up with something, but I confess I might just wait and see what Benoit comes up with. After all, I'd think of doing things like, classic investigation here, visiting several locations, asking around for names, but I'm the one who really shouldn't be doing that. I do not want to draw attention to us. So I think for the moment I'm just gonna make sure the safe house is secure and just wait and see what Benoit comes up with, because after all, it's not like we can get any more information from the body. We've searched 2 locations. We're missing something here, and I think we need a bit of a break.
Well, as Terence, as you sort of taking a break from being in the upstairs room, and you make your way into there's a adjoining attic, and you're surprised when you go in there to see a young woman that you haven't seen before, and she looks a bit surprised at you and says, hello, she says hello in English, which you didn't expect. And then she switches to French, but again, not perfectly.
I'll say in English. You speak English? Interesting. Who are you, if you don't mind me asking, mademoiselle?
Are we supposed to say? I'm Agent Madeline.
Agent Madeline?
Yeah, if you're in there, if you need to send a message back to London for anything, I'll be your radio operator.
Really? Well, Madeline, I'm very pleased to meet you, although I have to say this was a little unorthodox. We weren't expecting you.
Sorry, I just had to come by to collect some equipment to, replacement parts, that kind of thing. And you look how you can't help but feel there's, well, your knowledge of the world in general. She sounds very English, maybe a little American, but she also sort of has by appearance, she looks like she's maybe from sort of the Indian subcontinent somewhere as well, a bit maybe, but she doesn't really talk to you about that. She's not supposed to. In fact, she's not maybe really supposed to tell you her agent name. Although if you say one thing, that's the one thing you can say, right? She goes, well, it's nice to meet you. No, never mind. But, well, I'm here to help. Maybe we'll meet again before you leave, or if you're staying around.
Well, I mean, if you can send back any messages, if you can, then just for the moment, maybe send the standard. We're here, we're on it, struggling for the moment, but, well, let's see how things go. And I leave it at that, of course. I'm not going to give any more details to this person, but if they actually are who they say they are, it won't harm us to at least send a "we didn't all die on landing" report.
That is good. Yeah, they probably Agent Denise arranged to do that already, but also that is true. You know that if there's an emergency, for example, if you wanted to get some backup and you have a compelling case, you can do that by sending a message. Though the chances are not necessarily huge, but Terence does have an advantage at that, being an English speaker. He is more likely to get support from London than the others. Now, you do have, well, Genevieve has remembered how to get to Dr. Allard's house if you want to. It's in Montmartre. And you also have other options. Where do the three of you meet up? Does anyone want to go off and do their own thing first and then meet up later?
I feel, as I said, being a little unsure how to proceed, that the fact that Genevieve has remembered this doctor's address and actually knows this person in some form is an excellent stroke of luck, so I'll happily accompany her.
I shall also meet up with the two of them then at the earliest convenience and let them know of what I found out about the Ritz, and that might be a nice place to visit after visiting with the good doctor. Yep,
after all, Benoit does have the wheels, so it makes sense that he probably picks you up somewhere unobtrusive. You have a slightly odd drive then over to Montmartre, because it's not the sort of thing where Genevieve is going, okay, so go here, It's more like you sort of drive to the area until she spots a street that she recognises.
I literally have to get out the car and walk because otherwise I can't.
And it's like even your memory of Dr. Allard is a bit hazy. You know, like that sort of thing, like from when you're maybe a kid at a family party and all the grown-ups in your memory just seem massive and like slightly distant and maybe didn't even talk to you when you were there, but you just sort of can picture their face, but maybe that's it. That's the sort of the situation. But you do eventually get to 23 Rue Bachelet, which is a kind of it's not the sort of the classic Haussmann apartment block that you see all over Paris that was done in the 19th century. It's more like a slightly older grey brick townhouse, but it's opposite this sort of new Art Deco looking apartment building. And so it's like it's a house entirely to itself. It doesn't share an entrance with anyone else, which is quite unusual for Paris. And yeah, it looks quite fancy. There's a little overgrown garden behind a wall by the looks of it, quite a high wall though. You can sort of peer through the gate and see, the plants are looking a little parched in this weather. And then there is a few steps up to an impressive looking green painted wooden door with a big door knocker on it in the shape of a lion's head. And like if you were in the classic Call of Cthulhu mold, you probably could break in from the back somehow, but this looks like it's the way in. And the street that it's on is relatively narrow and curves up the hill that it's on, sort of around a curve to the left, so that in fact you can't really see very far in either direction because the turn of the road means that the buildings block the line of sight. You don't see much activity. The curtains are drawn on the front windows facing the street, so there doesn't seem to be any sign of activity in there. So what do you do?
I will knock. I feel like us breaking in the back of a questionable relation, maybe I have gotten the memory wrong. I'm 99% sure this is correct, but I could still be wrong, and this person may not live here anymore, so let's not try and break into his house.
Okay, so you knock on the door, and you have to wait quite a long time. But some shuffling footsteps approach the door, and the latch is drawn back, and the big door creaks open to reveal a sort of slightly shabby butler. He is very pale looking, sort of almost grey complexion with a little slightly droopy black moustache, and he's wearing a quite ghastly hairpiece. I mean, that sort of barely even pretends not to be a wig. And he simply looks at you and says, "Yes?"
Is Dr. Allard home?
Dr. Allard is home. Who is calling?
It is Genevieve. I visited when I was a very young girl with my mother and father.
Genevieve, who visited with her mother and father.
Oui.
Please come in, I will ask the doctor. He sort of shuffles backwards and gestures for you all. Yeah, you're shown into a sitting room. I mean, a little sort of, like the room that looks out onto the street. It's not exactly a living room, it's more like the formal sitting down place, but sparsely furnished. And the butler shuffles off. You don't really hear him go up the stairs, though. That's weird. And it's very dim in here. There's no lights on it. It's only what comes through the crack in the curtains of the ambient light kind of coming through the curtains themselves anyway casts a red luminance or red hue over everything in here. It's a massive bookshelf in the proper living room. You can see kind of across the little hallway through the open doorway where you're sitting down. Everything else seems to be quite dark and dim and quiet. And after a while, that butler shuffles back and says, "You may go upstairs." And then, without waiting to show you anywhere, he goes away, and you think you hear him going down some stairs or something, his feet clonking on some wooden steps. The stairs are obviously pretty obvious in front of you, and you can go up if you want, and who's going to go up?
You said there was a bookcase.
There is a bookcase.
Do any of the books match the 2 books that we found in Agent Justin's room?
You do find copies of... I mean, this is an extensive set of scientific and occult writings, and you find a copy of everything that Justine had is also here.
Do we at all spot the circle with the triangle symbol?
No, unfortunately you don't see that anywhere. As you sort of come out of this living room, you can see there is a staircase down into a dark basement, and that must be where the butler's gone. It's pitch black down there. Like you can see sort of just a big dark hole.
I look at the other 2 and I say, you should probably come with. I don't see any reason for you not to. My name just got us in the door. We go upstairs.
You sort of follow your nose, make your way into the study, and it is lovely soft carpet in this room. Like as you step over the threshold, you sort of almost sink into it. It's a kind of red colour as well. The windows are open. The curtains are open up here, so that sunlight is coming in. And this place is also not so big on the bookcases, more on the stacks of books, higgledy-piggledy all over the place. There's sort of a globe and an orrery for no real reason, all that kind of... As you see the Doctor inside here, you are struck by this idea, this sort of image as he drifts from one thing to another, of this idea of, like the sage in his workshop kind of looking over things. And the Doctor pays no real attention when you come in. He is an older fellow, as you would imagine, sort of, he must be at least late 60s, maybe into his 70s. He wears little oval spectacles, and has a kind of slightly goatish beard, a very detached demeanour. And you have to you'll have to, clear your throat or something to get his attention. But eventually, you do, and he looks up and says, good morning. Can I help you?
We are looking into the disappearance of a friend, and some lines of investigation have led us along a path to you.
Who is your friend?
Her name is Chantal Lenore. She is wife to the industrialist.
Lenoir, yes.
You know of her?
I know. Yes, please sit down. Excuse me if I shuffle some papers. I have to keep my train of thought going. Chantal Lenoir, she was in my circle before. Promising.
Before what?
Well, it was very much the fashion at the time. Spiritualism, the esoteric. I've moved beyond that now. I suppose she did as well.
Moved on to what?
He turns to look at you. You have a natural curiosity. That is good. Is good. And he sort of comes over towards you. And it's hard to... You can't really see his eyes as the sunlight causes glare on the lenses of his spectacles, but he seems to be looking very carefully at your face. You seem familiar.
Yes, I remember coming here as a little girl.
Were you attending some kind of party?
My mother and father brought me here. I don't know exactly how we are related, but...
But we are related.
She nods.
Yes. I did see Chantal more recently. She was asking me about Iskalon. Project Iskalon. I had nothing to tell her.
Do you know anything more about it now, or is it because you both knew the same things?
I don't know anything about it. Just what she told me. You see, they are beginning to comprehend how the human consciousness and the will may be focused in order to operate on another higher plane.
Who do you mean by they? I lean forward a little.
These Germans, they keep coming back, don't they? They stumble blindly. They waste their time with mumbo-jumbo about biochemistry and... But you see, just as Galileo, he found the truth of heliocentrism through the application of faulty logic. In the same way, they are learning to travel beyond the confines of the physical body. Slowly and unsurely. Yes, you, Genevieve. I like you. Can I help you with anything else?
You seem to be a learned man. Forgive me, by the way. We are friends of Genevieve, but, well, obviously we are not related. So, forgive me for the rudeness, but are you a scholar? A doctor, but a doctor of philosophy, rather, or history, or...
I'm a doctor of medicine.
Really? I do admittedly sound a little skeptical on that note, but I try and hold it back.
He doesn't seem to even notice your your demeanour. He sort of drifts away from you. Yeah. There's something decidedly odd about this fellow.
Mainly, yes, talking about all this occultism stuff, I've kind of assumed he is some sort of occult scholar, so him actually being a medical practitioner is surprising. I'll try and shift the conversation a little, seeing the weirdness, looking to Genevieve and Benoit. Why would she even ask you such a question? It's Operation Iscalion. What does that even mean? Are you someone who has ever dealt in, well, military information? What does Iscalion even mean to you?
Chantal asked me about it. It's some German project. That's all I know.
The word Iscalion doesn't have any meaning for you beyond, I don't know, maybe something you read in a book once.
Something occult, perhaps.
Well, I hardly need explain the provenance of the name. Iskalon, I would have thought, to a self-styled scholar. It is merely some alternate reading of an ancient deity. But it's also a code name. It may have nothing whatsoever to do with what they're working on. But what Chantal told me was that it related to dreams.
If you know the origin of the word, I would be very interested to know what that origin is. I study a lot of languages, but this is not something I have come across. Would you indulge me and tell us what it is?
Forgive me, I have important work to get back to. Find sacks on your way out, if you like.
I reach over and grab his arm, but not in an aggressive way, but in a gentle way, and I would do I'll just grab his arm in a very gentle way and like, please, it is quite important that we find whatever it is that this Iskalon is.
Before perhaps you get that out, or as you're saying it, you grab at his arm and I'm not sure if the other two can even see this because, you might be sort of standing in front of where they are. Your hand simply passes through him and his arm ripples around like water. And just for a moment, there is a sort of where a section of his forearm should be. You see the whole of nothingness. And I'd like you to make a ruin roll for that, for sure. And he drifts away from you and says, I'm sorry. I really must ask you to leave.
I rolled above my ruin.
Okay, increased by 1.
I'm up to 4. Yeah, I'm just going to do a good couple of steps backwards. Like, I've reached forward and then just suddenly I'm just, like, backing the fuck up.
I see Genevieve's reaction. I don't see what caused it, but I see the reaction. And it makes me feel that maybe trying to get anything else here might not be a good idea. But I am filled with frustration. This person knows things. They know more than they're letting on. And at the end of the day, we are intelligence operatives. But I suppose I kind of give Benoit a bit of a look. I kind of just gently flex my fist as I do so. Maybe I'm trying to get his opinion on, do we force the issue on a man who may know a lot of information, or do we retreat for now?
Why don't we head over to the Ritz, huh? See if we can find her there. This man speaks in riddles. But what he mentioned about dreaming? I heard that earlier today.
Then I suppose I'll just turn without a word. No more need to give this individual any more information. I don't think he's going to report us, but you never know. Let's get out of here.
Cut to the busy forecourt of the Ritz Hotel. It's still glamorous. It's still surrounded by cars, but they're military cars and there's lots of kind of swastika flags and eagles on everything now. It's not great. Still, it's busy and there's, cars pulling up out the front and kind of uniformed bellboys running out and unloading suitcases and trunks and hat boxes and that kind of thing. And you're all I imagine striding, looking cool up into this. Are you coming here to meet someone? Or do you want to try and get a room? What do you want to do? It seems like Benoit had a plan for this, so I'd like to ask him first.
Certainly, yes. I'm going to try to see if I can chat up one of the... someone who would know, someone working in one of the staff, one of the cleaners or a barman, something like that. Someone who might have seen Chantal if she was staying here, might know that she's here. And I mean, I would assume that this would be the kind of people that are in my circles. So perhaps there's even someone here that I know.
Give us an investigation roll first, I think. Let's see how well you do with that.
That is a 3.
You have to sort of maybe kind of pass a few folded banknotes around to get this to work. They're not very helpful at first, but yes, you do eventually get talking to a bellboy, and he tells you that a woman answering Chantal's description arrived on the 12th of June, but didn't check in. He's saying, I thought that was kind of weird, She gave me 10 francs to park her car. It's an Alfa Romeo. Very nice. And to look after her luggage until it was time to leave for the station. And then when it was time, she took a cab to Austerlitz station, Gare d'Austerlitz. She's hard to forget. She's wearing this light blue outfit and a dark blue beret. It's really well put together, actually. Yeah. Even her shoes match the skirt and jacket. It was good. It was good. Anyway, so that's it. And I can't say that I recognise her though, but she did know Chanel, who she lives up here now. So Like, she must be pretty fancy.
I bet. So she's no longer here. She headed for the station, and you haven't seen her since, right?
That's right. That was the weird thing. She didn't even check in. She just kind of came here and parked the car. And, well... Wait, do you have a photo?
I will fish out the photo that we've been given just to confirm that this is indeed the person that he is talking about. Is that her?
He has a look at it. He said, well, it looks like her. I wouldn't want to swear to her, though. Because, like, her hair was sort of almost down to her shoulders. It was tied back here. It's hard to tell. And then he points at Christophe Laveau. He says, I recognise him, though. He spoke to her in the lobby, and they had a coffee together, and he went with her in the cab. And when I could tell, though, she didn't like it, that he came up to her, like, in the lobby where people could see. She wasn't happy about that. Anyway, that's what I know.
That's interesting. This car, by the way, it's still parked here then?
I reckon so. I'll check on that. Wait here just for a moment. And what are Terence and Genevieve doing while this is happening? Are you sort of trying to look inconspicuous in the lobby? There's a lot of Nazi officers around here, by the way. It's quite high pressure.
If we haven't already, I'm definitely going to make sure that Terence has a newspaper to read.
Conveniently always covering the face.
Yes, I'm very keen to, on this, lay low again until given a direct, if we're breaking into a hotel room or something, I'm on it, but otherwise don't want to cause a scene here.
Benoit, while you're waiting for the bellboy to go check the parking records, you hear a voice going, oh my goodness, Monsieur Beaufort! What a pleasant surprise! And when you turn around, it's Coco Chanel. She sort of sweeps towards you and kind of does the slight air hug thing, the moi on the cheeks, and goes, I haven't seen you in ages. Must apologise.
Ah, Madame Chanel. You really should come by more often. We miss you over at the brasserie.
I will, I must, darling, but there's so many things going on with this dreadful war. And she sort of looks at a passing German colonel and goes, not you, Hans, of course. She goes, would you like to come up for just a coffee or something? Are you here with anyone?
I'm actually here with two friends. Yeah, certainly. That would actually be...
Bring them along.
Yes, and I point to Genevieve and to the newspaper. Yes, coffee sounds fine. I'm guessing it's the real stuff, huh? That they're serving here, not that fake stuff.
Darling, it's the Ritz. And so you sort of have to dither for a while, and the bellboy comes back and confirms that the Alpha is still in the car parking area. But then, pretty soon, Coco and her little sort of factotum who comes with her has swept you into the elevator and taking you up to the penthouse, which is very nice. And you're sitting you've especially for Terence and Genevieve, this is almost mind-boggling. Genevieve's just had a very scary experience anyway. You've come from a sort of weird dark house. Before that you were sleeping in an attic that is absolutely boiling. And now you're sort of under these wonderful cooling ceiling fans in a hotel suite that's larger than most houses. And there's coffee and champagne and all kinds of finger foods and things. And Coco Chanel off magazines is talking to you. It's very weird.
I try not look disgusted at the opulence here.
I will certainly appreciate it, but again, I'm not entirely sure where Benoit's going with this. This is, after all, a civilian, granted a famous one, I think, but again, I haven't really had much time to pay attention to that sort of thing, what with the war, but I think I know who this person is. So for now, I'm going to just fully adopt the very quiet but polite identity of Antoine Dubois, if asked anything. Yes, I am old friend, here with sister. Very nice.
Yeah, any time that it looks like you're going to have to answer a long sentence, Genevieve is just going to, cut you over and make it look like it's a sister who's just consistently interrupting, just so that you don't give your accent away too hard.
By the way, this is still risky for you, Terence, because Coco Chanel, of course, does speak French very well. So I'd like you to make a risk roll.
For
4's alright. 4 means there's a setback, but you avoid it. So I think... Well, actually, I think perhaps as described earlier, when you get asked a long, complex question, Genevieve has to swoop into the rescue and sort of fob it off with, oh, he doesn't know anything about that kind of thing. Yes, that seems fine. There's a knock at the door, though, just as you're avoiding this question. And Coco's assistant admits a German officer. He is sort of has slightly beetling black eyebrows over a wide face. He takes his hat off as he comes in. He's carrying a little attaché case. And the assistant says, Madame Chanel, Sturmbannführer Kiefer is here to see you. Now this, of course, is an excellent turn of events for you in a way. Because Kiefer is the very person that Chantal Lenoir was working on before she disappeared. How do you want to play this? He's going to come in and sort of sit down. Well, it doesn't look like he wants to sit down. He's sort of standing, he just wants to chat to Chanel about something. What do you do?
Well, this is interesting that he would show up here. I think I will try to discreetly try to overhear what they're actually talking about, then, unless it's very obvious what they're talking about, although it seemed like he was trying to play things at least somewhat discreet. Yes, I'm interested to know why he's here, and is Coco Chanel involved in Operation Iskalon? That would be surprising.
It does seem like kind of just high society chit chat. Is she going to this particular reception that's being arranged, and he's been asked by someone to make sure she's invited and so on, and it's all that kind of you shouldn't have yes kind of chat. It's from what you can tell, it's fairly obvious that Chanel is, although very much Team Nazi, not like involved in, or at least in this conversation certainly. It's nothing to do with with anything that Kiefer does at work. Now, this will be a name that your characters are familiar with. He is the he's the senior German intelligence officer in Paris and runs the SS headquarters on Avenue Foch, which, to all of you, it's kind of like room 101. You don't want to end up there. But if you get arrested, that is where you will end up.
I have one small idea. It's a small one, but you never know. I'm going to, again, we don't really want to draw too much attention from this person, but if any of us were to draw attention, then, well, Benoit would be the one who at least could, well, present himself, as opposed to me and Genevieve. So, I try and find a moment but maybe when it just looks like this gentleman's about to leave, where I do just say, in my best French, to Benoit, I keep telling you, these dreams are nonsense. Nothing was ever gleaned from dreams.
Kiefer turns to you and says, Don't be so sure about that.
Oh, monsieur? Forgive me, I am a junior doctor studying medicine. I have some colleagues who seem to think that dreams can access hidden depths, but personally I just think they are results of bad indigestion and overreactive imaginations.
A junior doctor, yes. As a matter of fact, the workings of the human brain are complex beyond what modern science can yet understand. But German science is at the forefront of exploring those boundaries. Mark my words, Doctor. Before too long, you will discover that there are great advances to be made in the science of dreams. Great advances. Forgive me, I'm being too forward and forthright. It's bad manners. I'll take my leave. Do forgive me. A pleasure. Au revoir, Madame Chanel. And you feel like he wants to click his heels together, but he doesn't. But he does turn and leave the room.
And I kind of just look at Benoit in a sort of, that was an interesting response.
I nod back, certainly. And I'll look to Coco and see what's happening now. Then, if the Sturmbahnführer has left, what are we back to drinking coffee and having pleasantries, or
back to chit chat if you want? And I don't know if you want to try and extract any info from her with a bit of investigation. You may.
Yes, I certainly would like to do that. I mean, Chantal was here, and we had some information pointing to them perhaps meeting, right? Might she know something about Chantal Lenoir?
She might do, yes. Please give me an investigate roll for that. So, one light die and maybe a reroll if you don't like how it goes at first.
I get a 4.
Oh, 4 is the competent, no bonuses one, so I think, yes, that's fine. So, when you talk to her about Chantal, and it sort of goes through, and then there's some, I'm imagining you sort of reconstruct a bit the fact that she came here. And do you mention Laveau being there as well, probably?
Yeah, I think she likes gossip, right? So, mentioning that is not, she knows. I'm sure.
Yeah, and she goes, "Oh, no. Chantal Lenoir wasn't here that day. Laveau was here, but that was Now that you mention it, she did rather look like Chantal. Perhaps he has a type, although, well, you know what Laveau's like. No. That was someone quite different. I didn't recognise her. But that's interesting, right? Because she could have positively. She knows what Chantal looks like, and that wasn't her.
Are we aware of any other striking women around that age who she might be mistaken for? I mean, Edith Morel doesn't look anything like Chantal, really, right? Or?
Well, she's about the same colour hair, same kind of build. Could be Edith Morel.
Interesting. You didn't overhear a name, of course. You just saw them passing by then. Couldn't be Edith Morel, perhaps?
Edith. No, I think he said Elise. Edith. Yes, perhaps it was.
Well, that's very interesting. Laveau and Edith. Well, that's very helpful. Chanel, that's, I very much appreciate that. You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play Porcupine Publishing's City of Light. Joining us as our game master is the game's creator, Tom McGrenery, and we were also joined by Volonda from Blighthouse Studio. You can hear more of her on their Call of Cthulhu actual play, The Sprouting, and the D&D actual play, The Lucky Die. The music was made by Phonotech and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient for your gaming table. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Graham Barey, Doug Thomson, and Lily for their generous support. And you'd of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to our Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay bonus campaign, Rough Nights and Hard Days, as well as bonus campaigns for Cult of Divinity Lost and Call of Cthulhu there. On top of that, we also offer early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember that Paris will be freed.